All right, so we covered what happened with the federal firearms licensees of Illinois case, and that was, of course, rather fascinating to see some of that roll out. But go ahead and I guess give us the lowdown of your understanding of are we going to see a ruling before the January 1st deadline kicks in of the gun registry after hearing what Judge Stephen McGlynn had to say yesterday?
Yes, he was. The state originally wanted more time and wanted to push it off, and the judge said no. He recognizes the tight timeline and deadlines that we are on here. And I think that he said, and you tweeted about it, that he was going to get a ruling out shortly after the oral arguments. The oral arguments are scheduled for 12/12. So I think we will see a ruling not long after. And remember, when he ruled on the initial injunction against the gun ban, it did not take that long for him to rule.
Yeah, not nearly as long as, say, for instance, the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, which took more than 4 months, even though there was still that pending request of the U.S. Supreme Court to take a look in the Naperville case. But interesting to see how quick this may move, considering that January 1st deadline. Todd, tons of other stuff's happened as well. The liability lawsuits against the gun industry, that case is still moving. I don't know if you saw the latest updates there, but the state's filed a motion to essentially dismiss the case out of a question of venue. The plaintiffs have said, no, that's not the case at all. This is very much the right venue, and our members are being injured by this continuing to go on and not be dealt with. And I just saw yesterday as well. The state filed for yet another, delay in responding to these particular issues. So you've got that to contend with as well. But you've also done deep dives and stuff that's happening across the country. If you could tell us what is the comparison between what happened in Maryland and what that could mean for a state like Illinois that has that firearm owner identification card required for people to be able to not just purchase, but own not just firearms, but ammunition.
So yesterday, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, in a case that was argued back in March, ruled that their version of a FOID card is unconstitutional in a 2-to-1 ruling. So going through this, Maryland requires fingerprints and mandatory training before you can apply to get a card in order to buy a handgun. So it's similar to a FOID card, but it's like the FOID card on steroids in certain ways, like we've seen the anti-gunners in the legislature try to propose. And we saw the Attorney General's Office of Maryland do a lot of what the Illinois AG has argued in our FOID card case here, where they have argued that the militia laws allowed for the registering or listing of people and firearms. And this Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals took that argument apart and said, nope, it's not analogous. So under the New York test, if conduct is implicated in the Second Amendment in the text, then the burden shifts to the government. The government must show analogy or regulation law stemming from 1791 that addresses the conduct here, and there was nothing there. So with that, they found, the state admitted in the Maryland case there were no analogous laws. They said that twice at the oral arguments. And then they made these other arguments about militia laws that we have seen the Attorney General here try to bootstrap up. And so the court said, no, you can't do this. And they talked about the 30-day wait that, that it doesn't implicate my right to ultimately possess a firearm on the front side. But it says I can't possess one today because I have to go through all these steps. And at a minimum, if I already have the training, if my fingerprints are already submitted and all that, I have to wait 30 days. Well, contrast that with the FOID card here in Illinois, that we've had people wait over a year to get a renewal or something. And now with the change in the law from a couple of years ago, they have 60 business days, which equates to a 12-week timeline. Now, the stats on the FOID card website are saying that they're getting it done in less than that, but it's still a delay on somebody, a first-timer, being able to exercise their rights. So with that, I think this says this imports very poorly for Illinois' FOID card, and I think that it's getting to the point where the FOID card is on life support.
So when it comes though to how to get to that point, we've got cases that have been in state court. You got cases that have been in federal court. I think one case is possibly in federal court going to come up late next year when it was docketed. So
Yeah, I don't know why that case is being drug out the way it is. Um, remember, like you just reported, the Attorney General's office is notorious for seeking extensions and dragging things out. And I think that is part of their strategy. They had that strategy when Scalia was on the court. They kept thinking, since it was 5-4 McDonald, Heller 5-4 McDonald, that if they just waited out and got one of the conservatives to die, they would start getting rulings that were more to their liking. And Ginsburg was open about overturning Heller. Um, I think that it went the other direction. And so their strategy is with a 6-3 court is much the same. If Biden gets another term, if another Democrat steps in, and they have the Senate, then they're trying to drag this out, hoping for a more favorable playing field. That I think is everything. Why the current case is not in the federal courts is not moving any faster, I don't know. But obviously, if we have this crazy Seventh Circuit with Judge Easterbrook up there trying to manipulate things, then we'll see. But the ball is now in Maryland's court. Maryland's governor has threatened that they'll do everything they can to uphold this. So,
but as of right now, Marylanders who've had to comply with this law, is it they now can go out and buy a handgun, for instance?
no, it's still in effect. They've declared the law unconstitutional, but it's still in effect today because if you were listening to Judge McGlynn yesterday, he said that while the court has ruled, there has no mandate
That's
that's been
right.
come down.
That's right.
So there's if you go back to the Cook County ammo tax, the Supreme Court in Illinois ruled the tax unconstitutional, but there's like a 21-day lag time before the order becomes
Right.
final.
Right.
And in that window, Cook County reinstituted and thought that they would play games with it. And that's why I have a lawsuit against Cook County for the ammo tax that is still working its way through the system. So it's not that it goes away today. The real question is, are we going to get en banc there? Because the fourth has a habit of doing what California does. You get good 3-judge panel rulings, and then the en banc panel sits there and undoes what they did.
Not
I
at
don't.
request of the the losing side of this either, right? I mean, isn't that kind of what happened in California? Was the full panel of judges were just like, okay, we didn't like that lower panel ruling, so we're coming in.
Yeah, California's got a different matrix on the Duncan case, and some of the politics being played with that behind the scenes are pretty egregious for judicial conduct. When you have judges openly criticizing other judges, I think that is a big deal. But so the question is, does the state of Maryland, are they going to go en banc, which I think is a distinct possibility that they go en banc trying to overturn this? And then if they don't, it's up to the Supreme Court, and it would be very, very interesting to see what happens there because we get split circuits. There's a lot going on there. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going up. I'm actually sitting here. I was making my notes out for a video I'm going to do today about this case in Michigan about a range. And not to give too much of it away, but that could set up another split in the circuits when it comes to training and ranges. So the more these splits in the circuits we have, the more this stuff is going to get flushed out. And then the question becomes, does the Supreme Court take a case and try to delineate much brighter lines than they have in the New York case. Obviously, the lines weren't bright enough in McDonald and Heller because the appellate courts kept playing games with this. Now, in my mind, what would be really nice is if you remember at the end of the term last year when New York was decided, there are four pending cases, a couple of magazine cases, a gun ban, and a carry case. And those cases were granted, vacated, and remanded. See New York. Um, I would uh, I would like to see, let's just say that you have an en banc panel that goes contrary to what the three judge panel did against us. So I would like the Supreme Court to grant cert at the end of the term, vacate the ruling of the en banc panel that's against us, and affirm the lower court decision of the three judge panel. And just there you go. We don't have to go months and months and months with orals and briefs and all that, and just kind of, no, you idiots got it wrong.
Well, it goes
It
to
would
show
be,
just how quickly these things can get mired down in the process, and especially when it comes to individual, guaranteed inalienable rights like the right of free speech, the right of free assembly, the right to keep and bear arms,
no,
the right
and
against,
that's,
improper search and seizure, the right of not incriminating yourself, the right of, a whole host of, having due process and so on. These are important fundamental rights, but they can quickly get mired down, not just in the legal process. But Todd, you very well know. You probably have a better grasp on all the different types of cases there are across the country. The minutia of the details, right? I mean, here's
sure.
Maryland talking about an ID card scheme for handgun purchases. Illinois has a ID card scheme for any purchases or
Well, not
even
only
of
that, it's any
ammunition.
possession.
Well, in possession as well, but
Remember,
also,
so
I've seen cases pop up around the country about whether or not gun stores can exist. You get down into all of these different issues, and it's clear that there is an effort to somewhat water down the Second Amendment. How much of this do you think is going to be a major political issue heading into the 2024 election?
this is going to sound way cynical. It's going to depend on the next mass shooting as to how big the issue is. I mean, the Democrats in Virginia, they just won the House, the Senate, and they're making a play for a semi-auto ban. I think they're still butthurt because when the Republicans took over a few years ago, they undid one gun a month, and it really drove them nuts about that their gains were being repealed. It wasn't just hold the line, but they were actually going out and repealing some of the bullshit that they had passed before. But you have a Republican governor with Glenn Youngkin. And I think the problem for the gun community, and this is going to rankle some of my conservative brethren, is the pro-life movement. The Dobbs decision is giving the Democrats dividends because they are flogging that to death. And you had the Republican governor pushing an abortion ban, and that drove the Democratic turnout. And J.B. Pritzker is contributing money, millions of dollars around the country, and their playbook is that they are going to drive referendums for constitutional amendments at the state constitutional level to drive Democratic turnout in 2024. Right now, they know Joe Biden is a drag on their ticket. So they have to have something else. Gun control has never been that great of a motivator for the Democrats. And I think the problem is with the Dobbs decision is that, for 50 years, you had the pro life movement out there and the Republicans largely in sync saying, yes, we oppose Roe. They had no plan to combat it once the dog caught the car. In my opinion, that's what you have. You've got a dog who has chased a car. They now caught the car. What do I do with it now that I caught it? And they had zero plans for what to do with this. And they have no they have no message. I think Nikki Haley's had about the best messaging on the subject as far as politics goes. Not taking a stand one way or the other.
And you're talking about
But
the abortion issue.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I think that you ask, so depending on whether or not there is another mass shooting to get the Democrats to wipe the blood of innocents all over their white shirts and act like Jesse Jackson did at Martin Luther King's assassination, I don't that's going to drive it. I don't think guns themselves. I mean, we know what they do. There's some depraved individual commits a horrendous shooting. They go smearing blood all over themselves and waving, the bloody rags from the scene in front of everybody. And depending on the shooting, that's pretty crass and cynical. But depending on the type of shooting, it catches media attention or it's out of the headlines right away. And I think those two things are going to drive what happens with the gun issue.
Well, Todd, I mean, yeah, I've got to get to another segment here in just a moment, but we're going to have to revisit all of this, and really, I want to get your at least initial blush response. Maybe we could do a deeper dive soon. What is the Second Amendment community's response to that? How do you, I guess, combat that narrative of them using a horrible tragedy for political means?
I think they have to get more active. I've always said that if you want to win this fight, then every gun owner needs to simply walk one block either side of their house, both sides of the street, talking to their neighbors about candidates, and because you've had people knock on your door for politics. I'm running for so and so, or we're here canvassing for so and so, and you kind of go, yeah, but if I'm your neighbor and we drink beer together and I come walking over and said, hey, Greg, can you put a sign in your yard for this guy? I think I like him. He's a really good guy. Well, why are you supporting him? Here's why I'm supporting him. I think you and I are kind of alike on this. That's going to carry a lot more weight than some random person knocking on your door because you're a Republican voter or a Democratic voter or whatever. I know that in my union, 30% of my union brothers are diehard conservatives. And I shoot with a bunch of these guys, and we're always talking about stuff. So the way you get to winning votes on this is you got to be personable and you got to talk to people that that are within your sphere of influence, and that includes your neighbors. I mean, most of my neighbors are apolitical. You hear out of them what you'd hear if you were sitting at the bar and the topic came up or whatever. But if you go in their garage and you're having drinks with them and you're just chewing the fat and you start, hey, this is why and this is important, you'll have a bigger impact on that. That's always been my belief, that you can have a bigger impact on your neighbor. Now, you're always going to have a diehard that's lefty because of, or a diehard person on the right for whatever issue. You're going to have those members that are just they're a diehard SEIU member or whatever. Don't waste your time. But look at how many people don't vote. Look at if you can make a local connection. That's how the gun guys need to win. They really do. The problem is the gun guys think we have it all within the Supreme Court, and they forget about the politics of it. They forget about, I mean, I'm always taking people out to shoot. I'm
Well,
always
they
making
don't just
myself.
forget about the politics of it. They may also forget about the timeline of it. I mean, just look how long it's taking to
Well,
get through
and
this
the
particular
problem
process.
is that when I was working in Springfield, you would always see the anti-gunners. They had moms who had no day job, who were busybodies, who had nothing else to do but to scold everybody else like they were their children. And then you had the city crew bussing in people. A lot of our guys are productive people. They work 9 to 5. Those hearings the state police held were not conducive to letting to a lot of our people get there. Downtown Chicago, first thing in the morning, all that kind of stuff. So that's always a problem. And I think, it goes back to what Ronald Reagan called the silent majority. I think gun sales alone tells you. Now, with Israel and national politics, international politics, it's interesting how many people who were uh, averse to guns, anti-gun even, are now changing their mindset, seeing what's going on over in Israel, where they were slaughtered by the bushel by people who are less than
Well,
barbarians.
not even just that, Todd. I had a conversation recently with somebody who lived in the neighborhood where that Illinois State police officer was shot by that wanted murderer out of Chicago here in Springfield. And they said, listen, when that happened, there was an armed individual running around our neighborhood at 1:30 in the morning. and they were concerned about their family safety and thought about, I probably should go buy a firearm. So that's an interesting conversation. Todd Vandermyde being the first live guest with my home production here with Bishop on Air. Greatly appreciate it, and we'll definitely be connecting again soon, all right? So hopefully you're able to still get up this early in the morning, and obviously you are, because
dude, this is nothing. We got rained out at the gun club, so, and we got the holiday weekend. Today is my anniversary.
Oh, happy anniversary.
Yeah, 27 years with that angel of a wife that I have.
Congratulations.
Way above my weight class.
Well, the best to you and your wife and your family, and happy Thanksgiving. Now go over and take her some breakfast in bed, man. I mean, come on.
We got the grandkids over already. So,
Thumbs
but
up.
the issue is, hey, watch Freedom Steel. I will have a bunch of videos coming out this weekend as I try to get caught up on current events. So
yeah, it'll be good
thanks
stuff.
for everything, Greg.
Appreciate that. We'll talk again soon. Todd Vandermyde, everybody, with Freedom Steel. All right, stay tuned. We've got another segment, and that is the Council Corral, a look at last night's Springfield City Council meeting. So that is on the way here with Bishop on Air. Like, subscribe, follow along. If you want to support the show, you can grab some merchandise just in time for Black Friday, right? I think they got sales going on. I don't know. I have some third party do it. They take care of it, and you can pick whatever kind of logos you want. So make that happen. All right. Appreciate the support.